I want you to pay more attention, okay? So you receive lots of input, okay, and also, maybe I will give you some opportunity maybe to work also a bit, okay, on different parts related to literature review. So this is the today's lecture outline. Why do we need to do a literature review? Okay. So where do you usually can find the literature review? Where? Where can you usually find the literature review?
Presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Online bookshop.
Online bookshop. Okay, that's fine. But okay, I don't mean the articles which are entitled literature review. Okay, I mean actually literature review exists in many almost in all the articles. Okay, empirical studies. Okay. So where do you usually find literature review? In a research article? Where? Introduction. After introduction. Okay, because you see the word literature review, right? Okay, that's fine. Okay, all right. Okay. Well, have you ever thought that maybe introduction could be part of literature review? Yes, you agree? Okay, good. Okay, and so now you think about try to connect yourself to literature review. So think about the research articles you have read. Okay, all right. Okay, try to imagine what articles you read in the past. Okay. And also, we would like to discuss the key features of literature review. That means what makes a good literature review, okay? And then how to write and organize a literature review. And how to report literature review. Remember, here I use the word report. So what does it mean? Report, that means when we report something, what kind of word classes we would like to use? Nouns? How can you report a news? Verbs, that's right. So actually you can see that although we often say in academic writing you have to use lots of nouns or noun phrases, right? But when it comes to literature review, particularly when you report literature review, you have to use certain verbs, okay? So we're going to study, some of these important verbs, researchers often use when reporting others' research findings, right? Doing a literature review, actually you're reporting others' research findings, right? Not yours. So where can you find your own findings in a research article? Findings where?
Discussion findings.
Oh, yes, but basically, so you present others' research first, right? And then you tell other people how you're going to do your study, right? And you describe your study, and finally, you present your results. Then you discuss the key findings in your study, right? So it's always towards the end. So you have to get the order correct, okay? Right. So before the research methodology, usually what we're going to read is about others' work. Okay, right. Also, particularly, regarding how to report literature review, you have to cite others' work, right? So when you report a literature review or report others' findings, actually you are citing others' work, right? So you also have to know how to cite others' work appropriately. So that, for example, people wouldn't think that you just copy others' ideas, right? This is very important. Try to avoid plagiarism, okay? And finally, I also will, discuss briefly, where you can find literature review for your studies and how you deal with the large amount of reading, right? This is very important, okay? Do you know this research process? I believe Eric has introduced this to you, right? Okay. But so what is situated at the center? Research question. Okay, that's right. Now think about the research articles you have already read. Where do you usually can locate the research questions? Where? Somewhere in the literature review. At the end, yes. Often. Often it is at the end of the literature review. Occasionally, maybe it is end of introduction. Yeah, that's true. So perhaps in this case, you can see that actually introduction can be considered as a part of literature review, right? It's just a very brief introduction, right? Okay, that's right, okay. So research questions usually is placed at the end of the literature review. Do you know why? Why do we always, present the research question at the end of the literature review?
Research gap.
Research gap, okay, good. All right, so you already know this essential knowledge, okay. That's right. Okay, so why do you need to do your own research? Because you have to fill the research gap. So you can see that literature review is kind of like, the research question is kind of like a bridge which connect what? Others' work to your own work, and also justify your research, right? Why do you need to do research? Because you have to convince other people at least that your research is valuable, right? Your research maybe will produce some new findings, right? Okay, which can maybe try to advance our knowledge of a particular topic. Is that right? Okay. So actually, literature review is quite important. For me, I think writing a literature review actually requires lots of writing skills. I mean, even now I'm still struggling with literature review. Sometimes when you, for example, like when I submit articles to journals, some of reviewers still make comments on literature review, and in a similar line, when I review articles, written by other people, I still make comments on literature review. So it's like a cyclical process. Okay, you need lots of skills to write a good literature review. Okay. So today I'm going to share you some of the tricks how to make a good literature review. Okay. Now, first of all, I'm going to. I found this wonderful video. It's about 10 minutes, but it's worthwhile viewing it. Okay, because it tells you about, as a graduate student, and how you can write a literature review, for your thesis, particular. Okay, right? For your dissertation. Okay.
Writing a literature review is an inevitable part of being a graduate student. So before spending hours of your time working on a project involving a literature review, it helps to understand what a literature review is and why it is important. You may need to do a literature review as a part of a course assignment, a capstone project, or a master's thesis or dissertation. No matter the context, a literature review is an essential part of the research process. Some important functions of a literature review are that it helps you to understand a research topic and develop your own perspective on a problem. Not only that, it lets you show your instructor or thesis committee what you know about the topic. Your instructor or advisor may assume you know what a literature review is and that you understand what they are expecting from you. You might hear phrases like, "What does the literature show us?" "Connect your ideas to the literature." "Survey the literature on the topic." Well, before you can review the literature, you need to make sure you know what is meant by the literature. A good definition of the literature is that it is a collection of all the scholarly writings on a topic. These writings can be in the form of scholarly, peer-reviewed articles, books, and other sources like conference proceedings. These may be called annual meetings or conventions. The literature also includes dissertations written by other graduate students. Collectively, these make up the literature. Visually, the literature might look like this. Often there are major works that have been written on a topic, and then other later works that build on them. These later works tend to be extending or responding to the original papers in some way. Basically, the literature is a continuously evolving network of scholarly works that interact with each other. As you do your own research, you'll begin to understand the relationships in this evolving web and how your own ideas connect to it.
I'm John Klass, an Associate Professor of Biological and Agricultural Engineering at North Carolina State University. Research is about telling a story, kind of like a chain story where each writer starts with a partial story created by others and takes it where the imagination leads. The existing literature is the story so far. You have to know where you are before you can go forward. But research is not just one linear story. Many different lines of study contribute to the story you are trying to write. Your job in the literature review is to see where all the loose ends are in the various fields of study that are most closely related to what you want to do, and then to figure out what needs to be done next. The background to any good story has to be explained carefully, or the reader doesn't know why one thing is important and something else is not. The reader has to understand what's going on. In the same way, researchers need the background in the literature of their discipline to know what is going on in their field of study.
So how do you turn a network of articles into a cohesive review of the literature? How do you find and tell the story behind your research topic? Reviewing the literature is like participating in a conversation. As you read and evaluate articles, you begin to understand how they are connected and how they form the story that the authors are telling. Then you start to formulate your own response or contribution. This process, discovering relationships in the literature and developing and connecting your own ideas to it, is what helps you turn a network of articles into a coherent review of the literature. So what does a literature review look like? There are different types of literature reviews that you may encounter or be required to write while in graduate school. Literature reviews can range from being selective to comprehensive. They can also be part of a larger work or stand alone. A course assignment is an example of a selective review. It focuses on a small segment of the literature on a topic and makes up the entire work. The literature review in a thesis or dissertation is an example of a comprehensive review that is part of a larger work. Most research articles begin with a selective literature review to establish the context for the research reported in the paper. Often this is part of the introduction. Other literature reviews are meant to be fairly comprehensive and also to stand alone. This means that the entire article is devoted to reviewing the literature. A literature review that introduces an article can look like this. Here is an article about cognitive behavioral therapy. Here is the literature review. In this article, it is part of the introduction. You can tell that the introduction includes a literature review because it discusses important research that has already been published on this topic. Here is an example of a standalone literature review article, in this case about employment. The article's title states that this is a review of the literature on the topic. However, not all review articles will have the term literature review in their title. In-depth review articles like this are an excellent starting place for research on a topic. So at this point, you may be asking yourself just what's involved in writing a literature review, and how do I get started? Writing a literature review is a process with several key steps. Let's look at each part of this process in more detail. Your first step involves choosing, exploring, and focusing your topic. At this stage, you might discover that you need to tweak your topic or the scope of your research as you learn more about the topic in the literature. Then, of course, you'll need to do some research using article databases, the library catalog, Google Scholar, and other sources to find scholarly information. All along, you'll be using your brain. You'll want to evaluate what you find and select articles, books, and other publications that will be the most useful. Then you will need to read through these articles and try to understand, analyze, and critique what you read. While researching and organizing your paper, you'll collect a lot of information from many different sources. You can use citation management software like RefWorks, EndNote, or Zotero to help you stay organized. Then, of course, you'll need to write and revise your paper and create your final bibliography. One more thing. Writing a literature review is a process, but it is not always a linear process. One step does lead to another, but sometimes your research or reading will point you back to earlier steps as you learn more about your topic and the literature. At this point, you might be wondering, how do I actually review the literature I find? Let's look at what it means to review the literature. In the most general sense, it means that you collect and read all the relevant papers and other literature on your topic. You want to provide an overview, but also highlight key concepts and important papers. As you read, you may start by describing and summarizing each article. Then you can start to make connections by comparing and contrasting those papers. You will also need to evaluate, analyze, and organize the information from your reading. When you work with the literature, you will read and critically examine articles and books to see what's important or out of scope, and analyze arguments for strengths and weaknesses. When working with the literature, it is important to look for relationships between publications. Some of the important relationships between publications that you discover might include major themes and important concepts, as well as critical gaps and disagreements. But don't fall into the trap of making your review a laundry list of summaries of the works you read. A literature review is not an annotated bibliography. Your goal should be to go one step further and integrate and synthesize what you find in the literature into something new. Ideally, you will create your own conceptual map or outline of the literature on your topic. For example, let's say as you read, you discover 3 major concepts that are important in the literature and relevant to your research. You should then identify how the literature, that is, the content in individual articles, books, and other publications, relates to the concepts you discovered. Some publications may be relevant to several concepts. Others may apply to only one concept. What's important is that you develop and present your own organization and understanding of the literature. Then, when you write your literature review, you will end up with a document that is organized by the concepts and relationships you found and developed based on your reading and thinking. Your review will not only cover what's been published on your topic, but will include your own thoughts and ideas. You will be telling the specific story that sets the background and shows the significance of your research. Researching and writing a good literature review is a challenging and sometimes intimidating process. Don't be afraid to seek assistance, whether from your advisor or instructor, campus writing center, or your librarian. Many librarians have subject specialties and can be especially helpful in identifying valuable resources and showing you how to obtain relevant information.
Okay. I think this is a very good video, so I decided to share with you. It's a 10-minute, but it's still it's worthwhile doing. Because it actually takes it's quite time-consuming to write a literature review. It's a process, right? Yeah, it's a process. Okay. A short quiz. Okay. Well, now based on the content presented in the video, and here we present you with several statements. Do you think it's true or false according to what has been described in the video? Okay. The first, a collection of literature review is a collection of others' work in chronological order. True or false? False. False. Why? It's not a list, right? You cannot just list it, for example, summarize one's work one by one. It would be very boring, right? So how can you do it better? You have to synthesize the ideas. Synthesize the ideas, right? You do not present the idea one by one. By synthesize others' ideas, actually you are contributing your own ideas, right? Okay, that's right. So the second statement, literature review is an evaluation of others' work ideas. True or false? Well, literature review involves evaluation of others' work ideas. True or false? True. When you do a literature review, actually you cite others' work. You kind of critically evaluate others' work, right? Okay, you summarize what is good. Maybe you also summarize the weakness, right? Okay, yeah. So this is a critical evaluation is a part of literature review, right? It's an important part of literature review, right? Okay, so this is true. Now the second, literature review involves contribution of the author's ideas, definitely, right? Okay, yes. Remember, in a video, first you can organize some semantic maps, right? And afterwards you have to add your own ideas to it, right? So it's contribution. It involves contribution of the author's ideas, definitely. Okay, so this is true. The next, the fourth one, introduction is not literature review. True or false? False. Often introduction is a part of literature review. It gives maybe a summary, and then later, sometimes you will see the word literature review, sometimes you don't, right? But you know that what follows introduction actually is a detailed description of what the person is going to cover in literature review. Actually, already I think the author mentioned some key points in introduction, right? Okay. Okay, the last. Doing a literature review is a linear process. True or false? False. False. So it can be linear, and afterwards you can go back. Is that right? Okay. Well, this is it just happens to some of the students who did the honors project or even the thesis. Okay. And finally, actually, they discovered that maybe they would like to change the title slightly, but not change a new title, right? It would be impossible, right? Okay, but based on the findings, literature review actually, well, maybe, they decide to change a new title, okay, to fit in the research better. Okay, so this is the answer, right? So any question about the video? Is there anything you don't understand? So think about, when you try to recall what you have learned from video, what impresses you, for example. Did the video give you some new knowledge? Okay, so do you remember something, quite interesting? For example, literature review is, I think there are several metaphors in the video, right? So literature review is a what? Doing a literature review is similar to what? Story, that's right, telling a story, right? But it's a metaphor. But you cannot really, do a literature review as if you are telling a story. Okay? But I think the steps maybe are similar, right? For example, you have to be focused, right? You have to always, keep, the readers on the track, right? You cannot, just talk about things haphazardly, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, so why do we need to do a literature review? Can you provide the missing words? Yeah, it provides a background for your research, right? Yeah, background. This is very important, right? For example, if you watch a movie or read a story, usually you start from watching the background, usually. But not always, but movie is different, right? Sometimes the background can be kept in the end, right? Okay, right, okay. But to understand, the background is very important, right? Okay, particularly for research. For research, you need to start with background, okay, to help people, understand, for example, why would you like to do the research, and also give them ideas, how much you have understood about the topic you have chosen, right? You have to convince audience, you know a lot, right? If you don't know a lot, you are not competent to do your research, right? Okay. Okay. It gives an overview of the current context in which your research is situated by referring to contemporary what and what. 2 words are missing. Well, it's related to discussions, but I want a more accurate word. So why do you need to do a research, a piece of, a research? Because there are some unsolved problems or issues, right? Is that right? Okay. So that means actually maybe people, researchers do not reach consensus, right? So they are still arguing or debating, right? Right? Okay, so it should be what? Debates and issues, that's right, okay, right, okay. So that's why earlier I said each review involves critical evaluation, right? You cannot say, well, this person's work is wonderful, right? If you only cite one person's work in the literature, do you think it's a literature review or not? No, you don't, it's not literature review, right? So that means actually your work is quite narrow, right? It's just based on one person's work, right? Okay, you didn't have get a big picture, right? You didn't see other viewpoints, right? So you have to bring all these together, okay? Debates, issues, or good points, right? Okay. Okay, so a literature review might introduce what? To clarify how, what are used in your study. This is a bit challenging, okay? Yes, definition, but here we use, definition, that's right. Introduce definitions, that's right. To clarify how, key terms, that's right, okay. Key terms are used in your study. This is very important because actually you know that no matter what kind of research you're going to do or in what area, you have to be aware there's a large body of research, right? So actually, often different people they may have different definitions of some key terms, right? Because they are from different schools, okay? But you have to, you can maybe show readers, okay? For example, like task-based learning. What is considered a task, okay? John must have introduced this to you, task, right? Okay, but actually in the past, different people have different definitions for task. For example, like the earliest definition, I think actually maybe provided by Jan Willis, but also David Newman, he contributed a lot to task-based learning. Also now Rod Ellis, okay? So you have to kind of maybe, try to give readers a quick view of, how different people give different definitions, and then you have to say, well, which kind of definition I'm going to choose, Okay, I'm going to stick to. You have to be very consistent. Because otherwise people will criticize you. Why? Because you have to follow the norms in doing research. Okay. Okay. This review might provide useful concepts for your theoretical and analytical what? I need a noun here. Very important word. If you're going to do like dissertation, right? Definitely you need this. A word begins with F. Framework. That's right. You can say framework or model. It's up to you, right? Framework or model. Okay. For example, if your work is based on someone's framework or model, right, and you have to introduce that model, systematically to readers, right? Okay. If it's for example, for like a PhD thesis. No, you have to, if you simply base your own work on another's framework, perhaps it's not enough. Maybe try to think about how do you revise this framework or create a new framework based on this one. In this way, you make a big contribution, right? For master thesis, I think it's all right. Okay, if you don't have created your new framework, I think it is okay. If you can just describe very clearly what kind of framework your work is based on, okay, and you just follow the framework and do a kind of a sort of even a replication study, I think it is allowed, okay. But for doing some PhD study, you have to have a new contribution. For example, like recently, one of my PhD students is going to have her thesis proposal presented. Actually, her work is based on, the keyword is like self-regulation. Okay, so she used like Zimmerman's three-phase self-regulation model. So the forethought phase, performance phase, and the self-regulation phase. Okay, this is the essential part. But this is not enough. I told her, okay, you have to got something new, right? You have to have something new. So she decided to focus on learner training, Because for her, you simply, it's very difficult to train students to become a self-regulator. They cannot become self-regulator by themselves automatically, right? They need some force from outside, like maybe the teacher can give a little bit of push, right? So teacher maybe can provide some learner training to make them to become self-regulated learner, okay? So she introduced the learner training, and also she, for example, like, decided, okay, in her learner training, she's going to do provide 3 kinds of learner training: affective support, technology support, and finally, community building. So learner can help each other, okay, right? And then she put the two things together: Zimmerman's framework, three steps, plus her own. Well, this is something good. This is a good foundation for her to continue her work. Okay, so this is a new framework she created. Okay, we just discussed her framework yesterday. Okay, and finalized her framework yesterday. Okay, but it's a long process. The first time I think when she showed me her work, I think was last semester. I think maybe in May. So this process continued for more than 5 months. Okay, right. Okay. Well, so doing a literature review can show how your work address a what? This is very easy. A research gap in the field. That's right. Okay. Basically, it's address a research gap in the field. Okay. All right. Yes. So sometimes you have to frame it to be a research gap. You have to find a research gap by yourself. You don't need to wait for other people to tell you this is a research gap. The chances very little, or slim. The chances would be very slim, right? You have to make a research gap. You understand? By doing a literature review, you make a research gap. Okay, you need lots of skills, right? So now, key features of good literature review. Now, first, literature review needs to be focused and relevant to your research, right? Because you're telling a story, right? So you have to tell anything that is related to your research topic, right? Research question is very specific, right? But I think you have to, review everything that's related to your research topic, even though you have to be selective, right? Because there are lots of findings, discoveries, right? You cannot. It's impossible for you to review everything. But again, how can you decide what to review? Well, only papers directly relevant to your topic. But how do you know that that paper is directly relevant to your topic? Now, first you have to have a workable topic, right? Research topic. You can think of some topic and propose it maybe to your supervisor, right? Okay, and the supervisor actually often can advise you whether your topic is workable or not, because they have experience. Okay, but now I think the good thing is you have imagination. Okay, you can start something from scratch, but also often, but I think you need lots of guidance. They will, the supervisor actually can tell you whether your topic is workable or not. So before you do any serious work, before you collect a literature review, better, show your topic to your supervisor or potential supervisor. Okay, they will give you that advice, whether it's workable or not. If you tell you, well, this is workable, maybe they will give you some direction. For example, maybe they will provide you maybe with some 1 or 2 key articles. Often actually, for example, like even a PhD thesis, how do they start it? How do they get the ideas? Often it's from 1 or 2 very inspiring research articles we read. So this is very important, okay? And based on 1 or 2 research articles, and then you discover, many other articles which are connected to the research topic. But these 1 or 2 research articles still serve it is still core, okay? So all the work actually is based, for example, like my PhD's work, so Zimmerman's work, and also so she also read one of my article. And I introduced our social cultural framework. She also got lots of inspiration from that framework, okay? So, so ask advice from your supervisor. That will save you lots of time and trouble, okay? Now task 1. Okay, now it's time for you to work, okay? Now read appendix 1. Only read the title, abstract, and keywords. And identify the key terms and decide what might be covered in this review. It's a bit difficult, okay? But I must say, okay? Also, I give you some key. All the key terms can be found in the title. Okay, right. Yes, you can get a copy. So just read the yes, just read the abstract. Title, abstract, and keywords. Appendix 1. So first you identify all the key terms, okay? And then you, based on the key terms, you kind of, try to imagine what will be covered, expect, predict, not imagine, predict what will be covered in this review. What sections will be covered in this review, okay? You can work on your own first, and then you can discuss with the classmates, okay?